I cannot even begin to describe Man Under Table. Welcome to the Film Threat Podcast. I am Chris Gore, and I have the luxury of being able to see so many independent films, and I feel very fortunate that this is my job. This is my mission in life, is to seek out independent films that take risks, that challenge you as a viewer. And I've seen one that is so bizarre, that is so strange in all the ways that I love, that I have to talk to you about this film. Man Under Table actually played at the recent Slamdance Film Festival. I have the director and actually the star and the writer, Noel David Taylor, is here to talk to me about this film. Dude, hey, how you doing today?
Great, I'm good. Thank you so much for having me.
Dude, I feel like also I have the benefit seeing this film that it feels very Los Angeles. To describe this movie, a guy is talking about making a movie, and that's what a lot of people in Los Angeles do. Additionally, what I love is you're constantly, and I don't even know if you made this decision before the pandemic hit or whatnot, the thing with the masks and the toxins. Every time a character comes in from outside, they've got a mask on and they're kind of dirty from gas, green, weird gas. So it has sort of a science fiction element. Was that done before the pandemic or during, or where did that idea come from?
It's really weird and mildly disturbing that was something that, we had done before the pandemic. And, I just thought it would be a funny gag that the air is literally toxic in Los Angeles. But then it was editing and putting the final touches on this movie during lockdown. And it was oh man, what weird portal did I open that, we're all doing this now. It's real. Very strange.
It is strange. And now, just it's become a part of our daily lives is so that's funny that you didn't intend it initially.
Very strange. And I remember thinking if this was a thing, the first thing that would happen is designers would make masks. So I wanted to make a bunch of different versions. And, sure enough, it's kind of disturbing.
It definitely is disturbing, but what I love about the film is, one, the sort of homemade nature of it, and you must have heard this comment before. Please, it feels in tone, this movie about this aspiring filmmaker feels like Twin Peaks, and I don't mean the older Twin Peaks. I mean the more recent Twin Peaks, The Return. It has that vibe to it that you don't know what, at certain points there's use of green screen in a way, but it's done, for effect, and it's creates this tone and mood that is just reminiscent of that. I mean, it's hard to compare something like this original to something, but there are times where I kind of felt that. Were you inspired? Is that a source of inspiration, or what was your inspiration?
It's funny. People have always told me that, my stuff is like David Lynch, which I now love him a lot. But when I was sort of starting out, I never saw any of those things. It's just embarrassing. But then when it's funny you mentioned The Return, when that came out a couple of years ago, I watched all of the Twin Peaks in order because I'd never seen any of them. So there's probably a lot of influence, and I really liked The Return, and people were hating on it, and it was kind of my favorite season. And so, yeah, I don't know. There probably is a lot of Lynch influence, even though he's sort of recent in my viewing world, and I love his work. Yeah,
I think that the way that you utilized the resources you had, right? Some of it, it's it's green screen or just real sort of simple setup. But what I really found fascinating, and I feel maybe you need to, being in Los Angeles, maybe that is why I have an appreciation for it, is all the talk about making a movie. Whereas that's I can't tell you how many times people I'll overhear them or at a bar or whatever. That is a common occurrence. People talk a lot about doing something, but then actually doing something is another thing entirely. And you play on not just the talking about making a film, but also the sort of petty jealousies that come in, and the weird, this has to be based on some personal experience. And I love the idea of just like, like, I'm going to explore that whole world of people who talk about doing something and then, are just end up being all talk.
Yeah, I think it was, it's both sides of that coin. Like you said, you can't swing a dead cat or whatever without hitting somebody talking about their movie. But I think there's also, the characteristics that I tried to write into the main character of this movie are like the worst qualities in myself. Like I've done that too. I've wandered around and talked about how I want to, write a movie about this, that, and the other thing, and then never actually do it. And then the jealousy, like if you're at all in the world of, film, and especially in LA, it's really difficult to fight that sort of almost like Instagram, anger and vitriol that, makes you lose it when Morrissey said, we hate it when our friends become successful, right? Like it's so difficult to not at least have a taste of jealousy, always filtering your outlook. I just thought it would be funny to, talk about that stuff.
It is funny. I'm curious how, like, people you've shown the film to, like, what has been their response. I feel like I related to it specifically because I feel like I know those people. And there was one line that I love where, like, one of the characters is talking about like $9 cocktails. Like, it's just like, oh my God, that's so like, that's, I mean, this is, that's Los Angeles for you, $14 for a Moscow Mule, right? Like, like it's just so irritating. So I'm glad that you included those touches. But how people reacted, and I know that it played at the Slamdance virtual. What was that experience like?
That Slamdance was incredible. Like I really was just waiting up until the days before the movie played. I was just waiting for them to call me and be like, "No, we were just kidding. Like, never mind, you're not involved," because it's such a crazy honor to get into that fest. And it was obviously like a double-edged thing being virtual, but it also made it possible to watch a million other films that I you can't really do at a real festival. So that part was really cool, and they did a really good job of like connecting filmmakers. But as far as like the feedback I've gotten, it's all surprisingly really good. I think I do get the most excitement out of other filmmakers because they're like, yes, like I've experienced this and this is real. And it's, it's sort of I guess it's a horror movie in a lot of ways. But yeah, I never intended on, making a movie about making movies, but they're some of my favorite movies. So I don't know. People have been very, very kind.
Well, I will say that's some of my favorite movies as well, is movies about movies. We do this award show every year called Award This, and we have a category, movies about movies.
Amazing.
Because they're my personal favorites. It's like, look, that's a category I made up because I want to shine a light on those films that actually kind of look at the process and put a mirror on cinema itself. Whether it's via a film or just about the industry, I find those. I mean, one of my favorite movies is The Player. I mean,
movie.
Oh my God, that movie. I'd love to see a modern remake of The Player, but like,
yes,
instead of talking about erotic thrillers, you could talk about superhero movies, right? I mean, just like, it's so ripe for. That's the only movie I want to see remade, and all they do is update the references. Just make the exact same movie, and also have it at the Rialto Theater in Pasadena, which is not very far from where I live. Now your film is getting a big release via Arrow, which what I love about Arrow releasing is they seem to have like just such good taste when it comes to selecting the kind of films that are on their platform. tell me about like getting it released through them and what that process is like. Maybe anything you can impart to filmmakers that are watching or listening to this. What would you say? And because I think that Arrow just puts out, like, if they're putting something out, it's something I know I should pay attention to. It's very interesting. Kind of like A24 kind of has that, where there's like that curation. You kind of know that you're going to get something that's special and not your, traditional fare in terms of movies.
Yeah, I think it was just a very kismet, like, happenstance that they found this film and wanted to release it. Their films are very special, and like their catalog is pretty large, but they're all extremely curated movies. You like look through the list and you're like, I'd watch that again. And then the stuff that they're acquiring now is extremely, like, I don't know how they do it. They just have immaculate taste, and it's been a dream to get to work with them, because they're just like the funnest, coolest people. And like every time we communicate anything, it's just like, it's like talking to your friends. Like it's the coolest little company that, like super amazing stuff. You should definitely, everybody should go and get an Arrow account, because their movies are incredible.
They're not like the I guess the people that your character is like pitching or talking to at the bar, like that. That's like when I think of like people in the film industry, I think of people like that. But truthfully, like I know at Arrow, those are people who love movies. I mean, it loves cinema, like real. So, and it comes through in their choices. What's next for you? What are you working on right now?
Ooh, well, I've been.
You can't talk about it. I don't know.
No, I can talk about anything. Trust me, nobody cares. I have been writing a lot. Like, obviously, I think a lot of people have been. A lot of people who make films have been focusing on writing during this time, and I'm hoping that I can get another feature off the ground. I feel like if I get more sleep, maybe it'll work out. But who knows if that's ever going to happen. So,
right. Well, that's a challenge these days. I just want to tell people, Man Under Table is available on just correct me if I'm wrong, it's on the Arrow releasing platform, and also coming out. Give us the release information for Man Under Table.
Yeah. So it came out a couple days ago, and right now that's where to watch it. They have some short films of mine and like a little making of featurette thing. Arrow. What else is there? Just go buy it.
Well, I feel like film is inspiring from the standpoint of it shows like that. To me, the most important thing about making an indie film that hits you, it's about ideas, right? And I feel like the ideas that you explored are interesting and funny, especially funny, and maybe like, and not like, like a different kind of funny where like, oh my God, I know that. Like, so I really appreciate it. Noel, thank you so much for talking to us on the Film Trap podcast. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. It's amazing.